My best friend betrayed me by getting pregnant by my husband. And then my own mother tried to convince me to give them full custody of my children. My husband D and I started dating when I was 21 and he was 23. We were together for almost 2 years before he proposed. We've now been married for 12 years and we have 2 kids. In the second year of our relationship, D introduced me to his mother, Mallory. I liked her immediately and tried to make a good impression, but unfortunately the feeling wasn't mutual. Mallory had been a widow for a long time. Her husband died of a heart attack many years ago. She raised D on her own, so they are extremely close. You could say he's a bit of a mama's boy, and he was afraid to introduce me to her because he always desperately sought her approval in everything. The main reason Mallory disliked me was that I came from a comfortable, middle-class family. My parents owned several businesses. I grew up with a decent level of comfort. They paid for my college and bought me my first car so I could get to work. But they also raised me to be independent and build my life on my own. I always worked hard to provide for myself, and after graduation, I never asked my parents for financial help. Unlike me, my husband had a more difficult life. His father served in the military and was rarely home. After his father died, Dee and Mallory became inseparable. Mallory struggled with alcoholism, so from a young age, Dee had to take care of his mother. He took a job at McDonald's as a teenager to earn extra money. Later, he dropped out of college because he didn't like his communications major. He told his mother how unhappy he was during that period. Without a degree, he had trouble finding work, so he looked for ways to earn money that didn't require one. He became a freelance writer and, to his surprise, made a decent income. He loved to travel and lived as a digital nomad for several years before he met me and settled down. All that time, his mother kept asking him for money, and he sent it willingly, even though it seriously hurt his finances. When our relationship became more serious, I finally told him about my family and our wealth. He didn't believe me at first, but was shocked when he Googled my family. Dee got angry that I had hidden it for so long and accused me of not trusting him. I tried to explain that in the past many people wanted to be with me because of my family, so I learned not to disclose my financial situation right away. He understood and overall was okay with it, but sometimes he would jab at me, saying I never had to try and that I'd never know what it means to truly work hard. That hurt me deeply because despite my parents' support, I built my career through my own effort. I worked in influencer and brand promotion, and that's how I fully supported my lifestyle without help from my parents. Dee never really respected that, and it should have been my first red flag when we decided to move in together. Is less than #0. 5# is greater than. Dee immediately said we should move into my place because I had more space. I agreed, and then brought up splitting the rent, but Dee didn't like that. He said he earned too little as a freelance writer. Because I came from a wealthy family, I should prove my love by helping him, meaning I should pay not only his share of the rent, but all the bills. I said that wasn't fair, but I was willing to cover the rent if he paid his personal expenses. That made him furious. He raised his voice and launched into a tirade about how selfish I was for refusing to pay his bills, and that it showed what a cruel person I was. We argued for a long time, and in the end I gave in. I had to cut back on many things to pay all our expenses, but I was madly in love. Meanwhile, Dee kept sending money to his mother every month and buying her expensive gifts. Every time I pointed out that he had money for his mother but not for our bills, he got angry and said she needed it more than we did because she was a lonely older woman. I felt ashamed and stopped bringing it up. When Dee proposed, I was over the moon. Honestly, looking back now, I realize he put in the bare minimum effort. I hoped he wouldn't be stingy this time and would plan something special, but in his opinion, proposing in our backyard was a great idea. In his defense, he did ask my parents for their blessing like a gentleman. My mother, who idolized Dee, suggested he ask my best friend Kylie to help plan the proposal. He agreed, and together they came up with the genius plan to propose right in our yard in front of all my family and friends. Kylie had been my best friend since school. Our mothers had been friends since childhood, so we became friends too. We always supported each other. She was like a sister to me, my soulmate. We did literally everything together. Her mother adored me, just as my mother loved Kylie like a daughter. When I started dating Dee, of course I introduced him to Kylie, and they became friends too. She helped him not only with the proposal, but also with the ring. Honestly, the sudden proposal caught me off guard, but seeing my whole family gathered to celebrate made it easier, even though I was a little disappointed that he proposed in our backyard. The first to hug and congratulate me were my mother, Kylie, and Kylie's mother. Mallory, Dee's mother, was happy for us and told me she had high expectations for me as a daughter-in-law and hoped I would do everything to keep her son happy. It was a happy day for all of us. Eventually, Dee and I got married, and even after the wedding, I offered to pay all the household expenses while he didn't spend a penny on me. I paid for our weekly dates and annual vacations because Dee insisted he was saving money for our future. When I got pregnant with our first child, James, I had to leave work because the pregnancy was difficult. Dee wasn't happy about that and started arguing that I should work, otherwise we wouldn't have money to raise a child. I cried a lot and, for the first time, opened up to my parents about our situation. My mother sided with Dee and said he was right and that hundreds of women keep working during pregnancy. But my father was furious. He called Dee and told him exactly what he thought of him, and then firmly said it was time to act like a man and take care of his family. He warned Dee that if he kept treating me like this, he wouldn't let his daughter suffer and it would be better if we divorced. Dee clearly got nervous after hearing that from my father, though I myself didn't want a divorce. We had signed a prenup at my father's insistence before the wedding, and Dee knew very well that in the event of divorce, he would lose access to the luxurious life. He would lose the house and the expensive car, both in my name. So for the first time, he stopped sending money to his mother and started paying the bills. I still paid the rent because I had enough savings. But this angered Mallory. She was used to living off her son, and when the money stopped, she blamed me. When I gave birth to James, I was overjoyed. Everyone came to the hospital to congratulate us. Kylie stayed with me for several days until I recovered enough to go home. Dee claimed he was busy with work and refused to take care of me and the baby. At home, I was very anxious as a new mom. My parents and Kylie's mother helped as much as they could. Mallory did absolutely nothing. Every time she visited her grandson, she only made unpleasant comments toward me, telling me I needed to lose weight or that I should immediately calm the baby whenever he cried. Her remarks were always aimed at me, never at her son, who did nothing to help me. After James was born, I was overwhelmed by exhaustion and loneliness. I didn't know it then, but I had postpartum depression, which many mothers go through because so few people talk about it. Despite all my attempts to tell Dee that I needed support and help with the baby, he remained distant and unwilling to be involved. He said caring for the child was solely my responsibility as the mother. He wouldn't help because he didn't know what to do. As I tried to juggle a newborn, the house, and my depression, Dee's refusal to participate only made things worse. He wouldn't even change a diaper or feed the baby. Every day, the weight of responsibility grew heavier and the depression deepened, becoming unbearable. I felt like I was drowning in endless expectations and unmet needs. At some point, I decided to open up to my parents about how I was feeling. My father was understanding, but my mother refused to believe anything was wrong with me. She said postpartum depression didn't exist and that I should be strong for my child and overcome it on my own. When I complained that Dee refused to help, she scolded me, saying he was the father and I had to be the better mother. It hurt to realize that even my own mother couldn't see how hard things were for me. The distrust from my mother, Dee's indifference, and Mallory's constant barbs kept me stuck in depression. My only anchor was Kylie. I told her everything about my marriage, and she always listened, sympathized, and supported me. She said Dee was a terrible husband and father and was angry at him for how he treated me. Knowing I had both my father and Kylie helped me survive that difficult time. A year later, I got another shock. I was pregnant again. It was an accident because I definitely didn't want a second child so soon. But I decided to trust God's plan and keep the baby. Dee, to put it mildly, was furious. He said we couldn't afford a second child. We fought badly, and I realized it was time to go back to work. I reached out to my former boss, who gladly took me back as a freelancer until a permanent position opened up. The second pregnancy was difficult too, but now I had the extra responsibility of being a parent, so I was determined to handle everything. This time, when I started earning again, I decided I wouldn't transfer my entire income into our joint account. I needed to think about the future, mine and my children's. So, I began setting aside 50% of my earnings and sending the other half to the household budget. As soon as I started earning again, Dee grew lazier by the day. He suddenly began complaining that he hated his job and wanted to quit. I tried to talk him out of it, reminding him he didn't have a degree and should hold on to a well-paid job. That angered him because he hated being reminded he dropped out of college. He said that since I had taken a break, he had the right to one too. I argued that my break was carrying a child through a complicated pregnancy. Despite our arguments, Dee quit anyway, saying we had enough savings and since I was earning, he could rest a little. He spent all day playing video games while I cared for our child, kept the house, and worked. I'd leave James with my parents when I went to work because my mother didn't mind babysitting. When I came home and picked up my son, Dee would still be on the couch, glued to the games. This went on for quite a while, and eventually, I got tired of carrying all the parenting responsibilities alone. In anger, I demanded that he start looking for a new job. Dee didn't like that and began hanging out at his friend Clinton's place, where they'd play video games for hours. Clinton was divorced because his wife cheated and left him, and because of that, he hated all women. I didn't like being around him, and disapproved of how much time Dee spent there. But Dee went to Clinton's more and more, and our fights became more frequent. I felt like a single mother because Dee literally did nothing to help, but I held on for the kids. When I went into labor with our second child, Nick, Dee was so busy that he ignored my numerous calls and messages. He simply missed the birth. I never suspected anything bad, even though the red flags were obvious by then. Kylie didn't answer when I called her either, so my parents had to take me to the hospital. She came the next day to see me and the baby, apologized for not being there, and said she was stuck at work. I didn't think much of it at the time. After Nick was born, I finally gave an ultimatum: if Dee didn't go back to work, I would pack up and leave. It led to a huge fight, but I didn't care anymore. As a mother, I needed a partner who was just as responsible, because it was impossible to handle everything alone. I told him I wouldn't hold a grudge. He was free to do what he wanted, but I needed someone who would actually participate in our family's life. To my surprise, Dee said he would start looking for a job the next day. I expected resistance or another blow-up, but he agreed, or so it seemed then. The next day, while he was in the shower, I was gathering his dirty laundry for the wash when I heard a notification ping from his phone. I turned and saw a message on the lock screen from a familiar number. My breath stopped. My eyes widened in shock. I picked up the phone and opened the message. "When are you going to tell her? I'm pregnant and I can't keep this a secret anymore." I froze, rereading those words again and again. When Dee came out of the shower, he saw me standing motionless with his phone in my hands. He rushed toward me, trying to snatch it away, but it was too late. I set the laundry basket down, walked up to him, and slapped him across the face as hard as I could. I didn't even think it felt like someone else was moving me. I was shaking with rage while he stood there in shock, realizing what I'd read. His eyes widened and he began stammering that it was some misunderstanding. I looked him straight in the eyes and told him he was dead to me. Then I packed my things, packed the kids' things, and took them to my parents' house. When they opened the door and saw me with the children and suitcases, they were stunned. I broke down and told them everything. I haven't stopped crying for 2 days because I can't believe my life has fallen apart. I told my boss, and she kindly allowed me to take some time off. Honestly, I have no words. That's why I'm writing this online. My best friend of 20 years slept with my husband of 12 years. And not only that, she's pregnant. That means my marriage to Dee is over. Dee and Kylie keep calling and texting, begging me to at least hear them out, but I refuse. Dee pleads with me not to file for divorce, saying I should think of our children. Update 1. I know I haven't posted in a month, but too much has been happening, and I had to deal with it all. I went back to work because, no matter what, I can't afford a long break. Honestly, work is my salvation right now, a way to distract myself. Many of you were right, that Dee and Kylie had been sleeping together for a while. Kylie sent me a long message saying she never wanted this but fell in love with Dee, and now that she's pregnant she needs to think of herself. She claims that's why she was trying to force Dee to confess to me. Dee, on the other hand, realized he would lose access to a comfortable life if we divorced. He says he made a mistake and just wanted to sleep with Kylie, but now that she's pregnant, he has no way out. He begs me to forgive him. He even went so far as to suggest I convince Kylie to end the pregnancy so we could raise one child together. His delusional ideas and inflated self-importance only fuel my anger. As for how it began, it turns out Dee had been whining to Kylie behind my back for a long time while playing video games all day. He complained how hard it was to be married to me because I pushed him to find a job. He said Kylie understood him and knew how to listen. And when he told this to Clinton, his best friend, instead of stopping him, Clinton egged him on, saying Kylie was a real woman, unlike me. So they first met under the pretense of just talking, and that two-faced snake decided to sleep with my husband. I have no idea what drove Kylie, since she knew perfectly well what a terrible partner Dee was, but I don't care anymore. In her message, she also wrote that I should be grateful because she freed me from him, since I supposedly wanted to leave him but didn't have the courage. Maybe that was her plan all along, who knows? Honestly, I'm glad she took out the trash, and now she can live with the regret of choosing someone like Dee. I'm almost sure that the day I went into labor, they were together. That's why neither of them answered my calls. But even that wasn't the worst part. When I first told my parents about Dee and Kylie, my mother refused to believe me, while my father was enraged. He called Dee and yelled at him for 15 minutes straight, even as I was crying. My mother tried to smooth things over, saying maybe I was mistaken because Kylie could never do this to me. So I called Kylie's mother and told her everything. Unlike my mother, she was furious. She didn't doubt me for a second and immediately took my side because she knew I would never make up a story like this. She kept repeating how ashamed she was of her daughter and cried with me. She truly understood the betrayal I was experiencing. After talking with my father, I decided to file for divorce. We already have good lawyers, and thanks to the prenup and Dee's infidelity, the process should be straightforward. The only complication could be custody, but I'm confident Dee won't want to take real responsibility for the children, so I'm almost certain I'll get full custody. What surprises me most is my mother's reaction. She is categorically against my decision to divorce. When she realized I wouldn't change my mind, no matter how much she begged, she suddenly changed tactics and began saying I should give Dee full custody of the kids. At first I thought she was joking, but she's been repeating this for the past few days. Today, I finally snapped and yelled at her, asking how she could even suggest such a thing. She said nothing and just left the room. Her behavior seems very suspicious to me. Why would my own mother want me to hand my children over to a man who can't even care for them? I think it's time to sit down and talk honestly with her and do it in my father's presence to finally figure out what's going on in her head. Update 2. Only a few days have passed since my last update, but my DMs are flooded with people's theories. I know for some it's just an interesting story, but this is my real life. My lawyer already served Dee the divorce papers, and he called me crying like a child, begging for forgiveness. I laughed and told him to prepare to lose everything. James and Nick are doing okay, despite the chaos. Dee never spent much time with them anyway, so they barely notice his absence. Of course, it's hard to care for a baby in this situation, but I'm very grateful to my father for his support. Kylie's mother also came to see me. She lives in another city. She didn't want to speak to Kylie or listen to her excuses. She said she planned to cut off all contact because this is a disgrace to both our families and she's ashamed of her own daughter. She also knows what a useless father Dee would be, so she's sure Kylie will eventually come to her for money, and she's determined not to give her a penny. News about my divorce and Kylie's betrayal spread among friends and relatives. Everyone is on my side. People aren't very forgiving, so Dee and Kylie started getting dozens of angry messages and insults. Right then, Mallory finally called me. For an entire month, she hadn't bothered to call even once not to support me or to apologize. I'm sure she knew everything, but she was ashamed that her perfect son ruined his life and got another woman pregnant. She called to tell me how much Dee was suffering now that the whole family knew about his cheating and they were furious. I stayed silent while she went on without shame, saying that as a good daughter-in-law, I should return to him and withdraw the divorce papers. She tried to justify her son by saying that men sometimes lose their way, but it's a woman's job to bring them back. I couldn't listen to it anymore and told her to shut up. She was stunned that I raised my voice at her for the first time in my life, since I had always been polite and patient with her. I told her she should be ashamed for raising a worthless man who turned out to be a freeloader, and that if she dared to call me again, I'd make sure I took every last cent from him in the divorce. I reminded her that throughout our marriage I supported her grown child, so now she had no right to ask me for anything. Now that he ruined our marriage and knocked up my best friend, Mallory tried to squeeze out an apology, but I warned her that if she called me again, I'd sue her. It felt damn good to finally say it to her face. She realized I am no longer the quiet, patient daughter-in-law I used to be. Dee will get what he deserves, and no one will save him now. Yesterday, I finally sat down with my parents to sort out my mother's suspicious behavior. I warned my father in advance that she was insisting I give up full custody, so he was ready to get to the truth. I asked my mother directly why she wanted me to give Dee custody, even though that would never happen. At first she hesitated, but my father pressed her, and she finally spoke. To our shock, she said that after I told them about Dee's affair with Kylie, she decided to meet Kylie in person because she didn't believe me. They met, and Kylie begged her for forgiveness. My mother couldn't believe Kylie had really done this to me, but then Kylie confessed she was pregnant and needed Dee to help raise the baby. Instead of yelling at her, my mother felt sorry for her. She promised her financial help and tried to persuade her not to break up my marriage to Dee, saying Dee could support Kylie and their child while staying married to me. Kylie didn't want that option. So my mother changed tactics and told her that since she had destroyed my marriage, she should take responsibility for the children too. Kylie was shocked, but my mother convinced her by saying I suffered from postpartum depression and wasn't capable of being a good mother. According to her, the best thing Kylie could do was raise all the kids together, since they would be siblings anyway. She told Kylie that I would never allow Dee to be involved in my kids' lives, so they needed a healthy parent like Dee, because I was mentally ill. Furthermore, my mother convinced Kylie that if I gave up full custody, I would have to pay huge child support that Kylie could use for her own baby. That's what convinced Kylie. And that's why my mother started pressuring me to hand over custody of James and Nick to Dee. When my father and I dragged all this out of her, we were shocked. I couldn't believe I was going through yet another betrayal. My own mother decided that because I had postpartum depression, I wasn't capable of raising my children and preferred that Kylie raise them instead of me. It stunned me that she couldn't understand why I had postpartum depression in the first place because Dee refused to help, and I begged him to be an equal parent while he pretended not to hear. I was doing everything alone, while he looked for any way to avoid responsibility. I burst into tears because I couldn't understand how she could betray me after my husband and best friend already had. My father was silent for a while, and then simply told my mother to leave the house. She started crying and tried to argue, but he said their marriage was over and he didn't want to see her again. I don't remember everything that happened next, but eventually my mother went to live with her sister. I don't know what to do. It feels like I can't trust anyone anymore. Everyone betrays me as if I mean nothing to them. Update 3. 6 months have passed since my last update. First of all, I got my divorce last month. My father was my rock the whole time. We saw the process through to the end, and as expected, Dee got nothing thanks to the prenup. When it came to custody, he first tried to get full custody, and when that failed, he demanded joint custody. But my lawyer presented the court with evidence that throughout the marriage, Dee was a completely useless father, that he had no stable job, that his mother was an alcoholic, and that he cheated on me and got another woman pregnant. That destroyed his chances, and the court granted me full custody of our children. Dee is now ordered to pay child support every month. Nothing gave me more satisfaction than seeing his face darken in defeat. I glanced back and saw Mallory looking at me with hatred, and I just smirked. As promised, I got what I wanted. Second, about my mother. She begged me and my father to forgive her. My father refused to let it slide and insisted she start therapy to confront her deeply rooted misogyny and to understand how disgustingly she treated me at my most vulnerable moment. I know my parents love each other, and it breaks my heart to see them separated, but I understand my father and his desire to resolve this with a professional's help. To her credit, she is going to therapy regularly, though she still lives with her sister for now. I don't know if it will help her, but I hope she changes. Although Kylie no longer exists to me, I still keep in touch with her mother. As promised, she cut off all contact with her daughter. She even said she excluded Kylie from her will and put me in instead. I find it a little amusing to watch karma slowly but surely catch up to Kylie. I've also heard rumors that Dee doesn't want to marry Kylie and wants nothing to do with her child, which frankly is exactly what I expected. Mallory is furious because his actions cost her 2 grandsons, James and Nick, but Dee isn't going to change anything. As for me, I feel much better after the divorce. Right now, I'm completely focused on my children and don't want to cling to the past. I can't say the path was easy, but I don't regret anything. I'm glad I loved Dee and married him because otherwise I wouldn't have my 2 beautiful children. I'm also glad he cheated because that was the push I needed to leave. Otherwise, I might still be trapped in an unhappy marriage. I think everything happens for a reason. I believe in God's plan. What do you think about this story? Would you have done the same in her place or chosen a different path? Have you ever had to rebuild trust after family betrayal, and what did your first step look like? If you found this story meaningful, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more real-life narratives in this series. Take gentle care of yourselves and your people, and remember, trust is earned, not demanded. See you in the next story.